Well, folks, welcome to the first ever Illini Guys pregame live. This is a huge game today with Michigan State going up against the Fighting Illini, number 19 versus number 12 at Breslin. Folks, we got to tell you, we got Kedrick Prince call. He is on here live from the hospital. What other group of people covering any game would make sure that they've got one of their guys in the hospital live? That is dedication. That's Ked Prince, right, Brad?
It's pretty impressive. Pretty impressive, kid. I got to say.
Well, if you guys knew what was going on with me again, I guess I'm not getting any younger. I thought I wasn't here for Christmas Eve and Christmas Day. They're taking care of the problem, but a lack of communication caused me to have enough setbacks. So hopefully I get to go home sometime today when the doctor comes in. You're going to see that happy sign because I can go home. But yep, I'm here dedicated. It's a big game today. That's why I want to be here. I want to hear what the fans have to say and YouTube professionals.
So, Brad, give us a breakdown. You've been at Breslin. How bad a place is that to play?
It's a really tough place. I mean, they have the way they have it in the kind of lower bowl and setting is that the fans seem to be really close to the court. It's a and they're a very passionate group, obviously, just like any program that's been that successful over the years. And right now they're looking at this game as probably this is their game to really take control of the Big Ten standings, to be honest. I mean, to stay undefeated and give Illinois another loss, who might be the best team, based on metrics. If you look at the net, that KenPom, Illinois is the best team in the Big Ten. So this would be a huge win for them. So this is going to be a crazy atmosphere. Should be a lot of fun.
Well, I don't see happen when the game's over. I don't want the officials to have anything to do with the game. Time is over. Illinois had Michigan State beat at home last year, and Tom complained enough till the game turned around. I want the players to decide the game and not the coaches, just the players is what I want to see, because it is a big game. But on the flip side of it, I think most people want to see Illinois win, but they also want to know that they compete and play hard. And I don't think you're going to see another lackluster performance from Illinois under Brad Underwood, at least not this year.
So, Brad, preseason, we didn't think Michigan State would be a bad team. I'm not certain many people saw them at the top of the Big Ten. They're scoring over 80 points a game. What did Tom Izzo do to get this team able to shoot?
Well, do they shoot?
Yeah.
They get to the rim.
Yeah.
They are shooting. They're very good shooting 2-pointers. I think they're shooting 57% from 2-point range this season. They are only shooting 28.7% from three. What they do is get out. They lead the country in transition baskets, 19.1 points per game in transition. They also shoot 84% from the line in conference play, so they make the free throws when they get there, and they do a great job. They're second in the conference in getting to the free throw line. Ironically, Illinois is now last in the conference in conference games getting to the line. So that's going to be an interesting the way this plays out. I think that could be it, because these are two teams. The other thing is, they're a great rebounding team. Michigan State is the number one offensive rebounding team in the country, or in the Big Ten, and they grab almost 39% of their misses. Illinois is the number two offensive rebounding team in the Big Ten. They grab 34%. So Michigan State is a fantastic rebounding team, and I think that's where the battle in this one's going to take place.
I think both teams do rebound well, but I also think you mentioned it first. They get the ball out of the basket and they just go with it. It's their secondary break is remarkable, and that's one of the things I like about Izzo is that they're like a well-oiled machine. And right now, freshman Jeremy Fears has kind of figured out how to push the ball up the court. He's even scoring a little bit more than what he traditionally has early in the season. So that getting back on defense is huge. And I'm gonna tell you what. They do a lot of lob action. They do a lot of that. And the one thing I don't want to see is if Beast get in foul trouble. Hopefully, I know the kids have got the scouting report. I just hope they pay attention to it, because honestly, this is a game that they can win. And I said it on the last podcast. You got to try to knock them out early and keep that crowd up, because the Breslin Center is a great place to play basketball.
Yeah, I agree. Brad, how important is it? We've seen we've seen Illinois get slowed up by the grab and hold of Northwestern. We know that defense is played, that style is played by Michigan State. It's played by Purdue, Wisconsin, Northwestern. How important is it how this game is called today? Or do you think Brad Underwood has had his team practicing WWE rules to see if they can counter that, even when it does happen?
There's no question that that's a big factor. When games are free flowing and get up and down and they're fun and they're not grabbing and holding, Illinois has been fantastic. I mean, they are really hard to stop. Now, once you muck it up and you grab and hold them, and I think some of that is because it wears on them a little bit. They turn it over a couple extra times, but also they miss some shots that they make otherwise. But when you muck it up, it makes it tough on this team because they're younger and they're not as physically strong. Last year you could try and grab Terrence Shannon and he could your arm might go with him. I mean, there's just a different thing. Marcus Damask was so physically strong last year. So this is something where the way the game's called is important, but I think it's how Illinois handles it now is just as important. How do they handle the grabbing and holding and clutching and grabbing? Because I actually thought Indiana did a lot of that the other day, and they tried anyway, and it didn't work. And so maybe they're figuring it out. I think this is a great test for them to see how they handle that physicality. Can I just say one thing though? I'm going to give my opinion. I don't like that the Big Ten coaches and Brad Underwood, Tom Izzo, Matt Painter, rock fights, Pizza Hut parking lots, all this stuff. That isn't basketball. And what happens is, I know you're trying to preach toughness. Big Ten hasn't won a national title since 2000.
Tom Izzo.
Tom Izzo. That's what I'm saying. And if you remember that team wasn't exactly a rock fight team. They got up and down and pushed the ball. So I hate this. I wish they would get away from trying to say. Mick Cronin called it out even the other day for UCLA, and he's whined about everything. So it's just one of the many things. But he's right. The game is more physical in conference play. Well, then you get in the NCAA tournament. They don't call it the same way. And your teams have been playing a certain way. And now you're not playing that way. So I don't know. I just feel like they almost embrace it in the Big Ten. And I'd wish they'd just say, you know what? We need to clean it up. So anyway, there's my opinion piece. Ked,
put you muted yourself.
I said a couple months ago on one of our podcasts, they talked about it was a recruit who wanted to play in the Big Ten and the SEC. And I'm not going to sit here and promote the SEC. That's not what I'm trying to do here. But honestly, the kid didn't want to play in the Big Ten for that reason. There's not, and we all talk about how great the coaching is here in the Big Ten. But why on earth would they want to continue to do this? They think it's great. And I'll revert back to the Northwestern game. That was a horrible officiated game. They think it's great. And I don't want to say that today because I think both of these teams, the way they shoot the basketball, but the way Illinois shoots the basketball and the way Michigan State runs in transition, you want to let the players play. Now, I know we'll have access pretty soon to who the officiating crew is. And I'm not going to say there's one guy I hope I don't see anywhere near Illinois basketball game again. If it does, I hope it's a game where it doesn't really matter because it is. It's just ugly basketball. And they haven't won anything since 2000. And it was good to hear Cronin say that because it's true. There has to be a reason why that the Big Ten hasn't won. There have been some great teams. 05 and you had the Wisconsin teams. Those teams were all great teams. And Purdue last year, they should have won titles, I think.
Well, Ked, just so you know, the officials now are up. It's Jeffrey Anderson, James Breeding, and Mike Littlewood.
Okay.
Heinies is Jeffrey Anderson.
Well, we're in trouble because I'm going to tell you right now. I don't even care. I hope he listens to this podcast. If he's on that game, we are, because that dude is clueless. I watched him do the Wisconsin game the other day. I had no vested interest in it, and it's just mind-boggling to me. And if you say anything to him, a fan says anything, you're not going to stay in that stadium very long. He is a different version of Ted Valentine for me.
Who are we talking about here?
Heinies.
Jeffrey Anderson.
So,
yeah.
Yep.
Okay, so well, good, folks. So we've started this off with a buzz.
So, yeah, I don't know. That would be funny to hear. At least we get the entertainment of high knees going up and down the court. So you got to look at the positives. So it should be fun. So no, this was no. But I think But I also think officials get influenced by crowds and by Izzo, by coaches. So I think Brad's going to have to really make sure he's on them early about the physicality, about the just all that kind of stuff, and just make sure that the grabbing and holding is called, and the bumping cutters and things like that, not letting him through. And if you do that, then it changes the game. So I think the other thing is, I talked about this in my pregame. One key for me in this game is one thing that I've noticed: Illinois runs so many ball screens, right? And they run a ton of ball screens, and they should, because they have one of the best ball screen facilitators in the country, in Kasparas Yakuchonis. So that's good. They defend ball screens in practice all the time. Where I've seen them get hurt is actually when teams are running, guys off of single actions or off pin downs and things like that. Like, for example, the other day, how many times did Luke Goody get open for like a little baseline jumper off the out of bounds play just off a single screen? We saw guys running. I think it was earlier in the game, and gosh, I'm trying to think which game it was. It might have been Northwestern. Guys running off, screens, baseline screens, and I don't think Illinois guys are as good at getting through screens as they have been in the past, because they don't run many off-ball screens of their own, so it's more difficult for them to learn how to get through screens, in my opinion. So anyway, that's
and what's his name from Indiana? If Illinois had him setting screens with the ability to move like Ballo was moving, holy cow! Illinois, you might have guys averaging 50 a game.
Yeah, no kidding.
Well, like I said to you, Brett, I agree with you. I want to see Underwood. You have to, and don't wait till 6 minutes to go in the game, because at some point Illinois is going to make a run. He's going to get upset about an illegal screen or hand check. Then the crowd's going to go off. I don't want to see Coach Underwood just go back to his seat. I want to see him ruffle some, because it is a big game. I mean, it really is. And for the people out there who seem to think that Illinois is not a team that's worthy, they are. This is one of Michigan State's homecomings. If you look at the rest of the schedule, which I did a couple of days ago, I tell you, out of all the teams that's contending, in my opinion, now we've already talked about the 10-game winning streak, but when you look at what's on their schedule, they don't have to go to Oregon. Their schedule is really, really nice. This is the year Michigan State should win the Big Ten based on the rest of their schedule that they have. Because I don't know if they go to Wisconsin. I don't know if they play but one time. So this is a big game for them today.
That's the new factor that we have. One of the negatives of conference realignment is when the conferences got this big, the schedule now means so much more. Think about Indiana in football this year. Indiana was a very good team, but if you flip-flopped Indiana and Illinois' schedule, most likely Illinois goes to the CFP and Indiana doesn't. Not a knock on Indiana or a knock on Illinois. It's just the schedule determined that. And in basketball, it may be even more apparent, because you got a few teams you get doubled up on. And boy, if you get doubled up on the wrong team, that's not very fun.
Yeah, no question. It does affect things. Michigan State still goes to UCLA, Illinois, Michigan, Maryland, and Iowa and Rutgers after this one. So they've got some tough ones. I think that their home schedule, with having this might be their only. I guess they got Wisconsin and Michigan at home. So, but this is probably their toughest home game left. So they're in a good spot for sure. But I'm not gonna. I think Michigan State's a good team. Ken Pom has them at 14. I think they're right up there in the net in a similar spot. They are a team that, they beat North Carolina on a neutral floor. A North Carolina team that just lost at home to Stanford and is 12-7. And that's their best win, I think. So I don't know that they've really been tested too much. They did win at Ohio State, which isn't a bad win, although the Buckeyes have lost 3 in a row now, including at home to Indiana and Oregon. So they don't look like, other than their win against, they blew out was it Kentucky early
It
on?
looked like
But, I mean,
Thornton versus everybody.
yeah, but I mean, they have not. So I don't know. I mean, they've won a bunch of games in a row against very mediocre teams. But like you said, same thing with Indiana. They did the job. They beat the teams, and that's all you can really do. Play the teams in front of you. So kudos to them. But at the same time, and so I guess the thing is they're going to have to do is they're going to have Illinois needs to win this game, sweep Michigan State, and it really makes them. I think if Illinois sweeps Michigan State and beats Michigan, they're probably going to win the Big Ten at Michigan because I think they're in a great position and wins their home games, right? So
I heard you predict Illinois is going to sweep Michigan State and beat Michigan on the road.
No, that's not what I said. I said I actually, if you look at my preview today, what I wrote was I think that this is going to come down to the wire, and I think there's going to be a mythical, magical call that goes Michigan State's way, and they're going to pull this game out at the end, and just with a phantom foul, a non-call on a foul. Something like that, because that seems to be what happens in these types of games, especially at the Breslin Center. Now, that's where I think Illinois needs to get a lead, and take away that opportunity for the officials to decide this game.
Yes, they really do. Because I mean, I hate to say it, but you and I both know, both of you, they're going. I mean, and I don't even want to say the home cooking. I know the Michigan State fans that do follow us are going to say that we're crying about the officiating right away. Tom Izzo, to his credit, he deserves it. I mean, he's been around a long time, but I think Illinois has also established themselves as one of the best teams in the country. So I want to see it go. I like to see it go both ways. And you're right, Brad. They got to get out to get a lead early. And to me, if I had to pick one player that I personally think that's the most important of the day-to-day, it's going to be Ivisic. I think he has huge. When he's knocking down shots the way he did in Indiana, it's contagious. The rest of the team feeds off of it. I think that's great. And I think when he's making, like I said, knocking shots, and then if he gets to the block, I want to see him make some of those money. He's missed a couple of those as of late, but they feed off of his three-point shooting, I think.
So, Brad, a good question comes up here. Who do you think the closer is for Michigan State late in the game? Who do they want to keep the ball in the hands of?
Well, I mean, I think Akins is going to be the guy they want shooting it. They have an interesting roster in that they have one guy averaging in double figures. They're the only team in the top 25 like that. And so it's very interesting just to see what happens there. But Akins, I think, is the guy that they want taking those shots. And we've seen, Fears make some plays down the stretch, plays for others more than anything, but they've been pretty good. I got to say, they've been pretty good in their close games. I mean, you would think that maybe they don't have a guy, they don't have a star guy, but the balance also makes it tough because there's nobody out there. Akins has the highest usage and he takes the most shots, but there's no guy on that team that you say, this is the guy we have to watch and stop. I mean, there's no Kasparas Yakuchonis. There's no guy like that where you say, this is the guy we have to make sure that they don't, that doesn't happen. I mean, but then you've got, whether it's Akins and, Holloman, or whether it's Jeremy Fears making a play, Jace Richardson, Cohen Carr getting the basket, they post up Kohler, they've got Xavier Booker. I still think Frankie Fiddler, he's on a terrible streak of shooting 8 for 44 this year, 18%. I still think he's a guy who can make plays and hit some shots. But yeah, overall, I don't know that they don't have that star guy. But, man, they just have a lot of different guys. So it's very difficult to game plan when you think I'm going to leave this guy open or I'm going to help off this guy. And so that's that's a tough thing.
Well, when you play the analytics, I know against AG last week when they played as USC, the guy who came into the game 2 for 9, but ended up being 3 for 5. What I would do personally, I wouldn't do it to anybody. Don't give them a chance to catch fire, because as soon as you do that, one goes in, another one goes in, then that person, they become a part of the defense where you have to honor. So, I mean, I get it. Like right now, we coming into the game, we knew Jeremy Fears wasn't a good shooter. Well, in the last few games, I'm looking at any statistics. I've just watched the game, just trying to scout a little bit. He's making shots, and but he is right. He's a pass-first guy, and what the Illinois teams typically do is get in foul trouble because Michigan State is athletic and they can go up and get the basketball and go over you with it. Now, they have not been a great 3-point shooting team. They're better. So if they're not knocking down shots, and if Illinois can stay out of foul trouble, and somebody be special other than Ivisic and KJ, they need Trey White to get going again. They really do.
Now, I wanted to throw up your comment because I thought this was really interesting. You know, I used to like Izzo. I will say Izzo's tipping point for Illini fans seems to have been when he made the mistake of backing Bruce Weber, and then Illini fans threw in the conspiracy theory that he just wanted Weber around so he could beat him all the time, and I think he's dropped in popularity ever since.
Yeah, I didn't really have a problem with that. I think it was
I didn't either.
I think it was the Sissoko Dosunmu stuff.
Well, now
for me, that was the moment.
Yep.
I mean, it was like, you know, and just kind of defending that more than he did. That was the one.
Well,
yeah.
But I want to go back to one thing. You know, crying till he gets his way, but that's been the Big Ten as long as I've lived, because these referees were terrified of Bob Knight and Gene Cady for years. And I one time got a technical in a basketball game because I told the referee, I said, the other coach is treating you like dog doo-doo, and you're letting him do that. I asked him, I said, when you're at work during the week, do you let people come in and talk to you like that and then give them whatever they want? And then I got a T. But I really think that you know, Izzo is doing nothing more than emulating the guys that were head coaches while he was an assistant coach. And I don't know how you ever break this thing. I actually think Brad Underwood, I thought he was going down the path to be one of those type of coaches. And in the last 2 years, I actually like his style a lot better because he's now not whining all the time. He's just kind of coaching his players. And I you would think referees would appreciate not being made to look stupid in front of everybody on a regular basis.
Well, that's true. But at the same time, you cannot allow them to a coach, Mike. You asked if they could do something. They could. You know, when I was at the game last week at State Farm Center, I think I tweeted, one official said, you got one more chance and I'm going to tee you up. Don't allow it. And I do miss that from Brad Underwood. I wish Shauna Green would do it. Now, I'll tell you the guy who's all over the official's ass is Brett Bielema. He'll do it. Yeah. And you don't need to be negative or to be nasty, but if they make a mistake, here's the deal. Illinois is relevant again. Whether people listening to this are on opposing schools, they are. Brad Underwood should not just walk away and not say anything, because at the end of the day, you know what? Officials are going to miss calls. But I don't want to see – I hate watching, and anybody watches this game today, there's going to be an offensive foul or some kind of hook foul called when Tom Izzo is standing right next to the official. He's going to wave his right hand, and they're going to make the call. I can assure you it's going to happen.
Yeah. So here's my thought. I don't think this is about, you know, I don't know. I think it's, you know, we've seen this over and over. And it goes back to even like Larry wrote the white jersey thing about the NCAA tournament. Being at home matters in these games. And I think you get the break of the 50-50 calls. And I think that's the difference. So this is I definitely would say this. I would say this, that I don't think, and I don't, it's not for me about Izzo as much as it is, it's everybody, and it's just the way it is. But I think you have to advocate for your guys by you tell an official when you mention something to an official, hey, watch this. He's going to look for it. And that's why it comes after the official mentions it, because it probably is a foul. A lot of times it is a foul, or it was a foul. It happened. And so you mentioned it to him, and then guess what? A few minutes later, the same play happens, and he's like, oh, okay, yeah, that's what he's talking about, foul. And so these things happen, and that's human nature. So I think it's more human nature than anything. I still don't understand the way they can get on it. And when I was young, I used to do more of that. Now I'm more like, my biggest problem isn't necessarily judgment calls unless they're just terribly bad. It's more rules if they don't know the rules. And these guys, most of them know the rules. I mean, they're going to miss calls. This game is so hard to call. And I know people, it's an excuse. That's why the NBA, you know, the NBA officials are really good because they're professional officials. These guys are doing 6 games a week. They're doing every night. They're flying around the country for different venues and so forth. And then many of them have jobs when they're not doing this. I mean, it's very lucrative. But I tell you, I can't imagine they're able to really get to watch themselves and grade themselves and see how well they do and what they miss. And that's part of the learning process is to be able to watch film. And we do it with every player. Coaches do it to see what they messed up or what they should have done. Why wouldn't officials do it? But they don't.
Yeah, I look at this, and this is my soapbox, but because I've written a lot of articles on this over the years. But I think referees, as frustrating as I get with them, I think they are put in horrible positions because they're not full-time employees. As Brad said, you got guys who are flying across the country. The worst part is the supervisors for each conference are different. So if you don't like the way things are done in the Big Ten, you put it at the feet of the ref supervisor, who quite frankly sucks. And I'm not talking as a person. I'm talking about what he wants the refs to enforce. And I at some point, I'm shocked the Big Ten commissioner doesn't look down and say, you know what, we need to make our officiating mirror what our teams will play in the NCAA and whatever standards the supervisor of NCAA officials has. That's what I would adopt. And the other thing is, if they were full-time employees, then you would be able to have them year-round. They could be in physical training. They could learn how to run with high knees. They could do whatever you wanted, but they could work. And not only could they do good things in the regular season, but in the off season, they could be out on the AAU circuit honing their skills, but also developing and coaching that next level of referees to make the sport better. And I just don't understand why they're not. When you have over $1 billion with a B for your TV contracts, the football and basketball officials should be full-time employees.
Well, they do that part, Mike. I remember going to an AAU event in Chicago.
I'm talking full-time, kid, 40 hours a week, you know.
I agree, but I mean, no, my comment was they do try to hire new guys. Like Illinois had recruited Indiana. I don't remember seeing a lot of those guys. I know they're trying to, but my point is, I went to an AAU basketball game in Chicago, and the veteran guys that have been officials for long periods of time, they are constantly critiquing the officials. Every time out, they're telling them, hey, you missed this. This is what you should do. I was sitting next to one guy, and he was telling him how much, you have to take before you tee a guy up. So they do that in the summertime. I've seen a lot of new guys. I mean, I'm not that they're good or bad. I've not seen enough of them, but there's some new blood coming around.
Yeah, they're learning from the bad guys though. So who knows?
No, that's a good point.
No, so back to but on the game here, I think my keys to the game. I don't know about you guys, but what are my keys to the game? And what I talked about were handling the physicality. Was one. I mean, because it's going to be physical, the rock fight stuff. I think rebounding is going to be the key for both teams because both teams rely on offensive rebounding to get second chance points. They are two of the best rebounders. They're number 1 and 2 in offensive rebounding in the Big Ten. So I expect that to be key. The other part is, we're going to see how Illinois, likes to run the drop coverage. It may be a little different. I mean, that means that they want to keep, Jeremy Fears in that ball screen. They want to keep him away from the rim. You don't want him to get downhill and go to the rim, but he's also you can't let him spray it. So you can't help from other spots. You got to protect against the lob. So it'd be interesting to see how they defend him in that ball screen. And then what they do on others, how they are able to get through screens to contest shooters as well. On the offensive end, how does Illinois handle the Michigan State's either going to, they like to hard hedge that high ball screen. Now I could see them also switching in many cases, depending on who's on the screener, but I think they're going to hard hedge that ball screen. And how does Illinois? Because they want to get the ball out of KJ's hands. They want to make somebody else.
Brad, can you explain for people who maybe haven't coached to your level what you mean by hard hedge?
So they're going to so instead of letting KJ come off that screen, they're going to step out and force him out higher and higher and farther away from the basket so that it makes it harder. And then so it's, he can't just come around and shoot a three. So they don't want him to be able to get in front. So you're stopping him from getting in there, and that allows that player to then go under that screen and get back to him. So it makes him, the idea behind it. But the problem is the roll man or the pick and pop guy can be open in that situation. And so what happens? So they have to help out. So when they help out, it leaves somebody open for maybe a three, whatever. And now the one thing about Illinois is what Michigan State will do, just to give you an example. So let's say they run a pick and pop. and Ivasic pops out on that hard hedge, and KJ has to go out high. Ivasic pops out. He's open. When they throw that pass, the other guy from the weak side, they like to shoot the gap, and they will get pick twos out of taking away that pick and pop if the pass. So they force that pass to be longer by extending him out, pushing him farther away from the guy who's catching it, and then they can shoot that gap and tip that pass. Or even if they get up there, they can test it and they can run then the backside guy to the third guy in the corner. It allows them to rotate that defensively. So these are things that Illinois will have to counter, and I think this will be very, very intriguing. The X's and O's matchup is very intriguing. The other thing is, Ked mentioned this, transition defense. You got to get back on defense. These guys lead the country in points scored getting to the in transition, 19.1 points a game. If Illinois can keep that down around 10 to 12 points a game, I think that's a huge advantage for them.
Yeah.
Ed, what were your keys for the game?
It's number one. It really is. That transition offense, it looks better to this year than it has in a long time. It has. They get the ball out even on a free throw, on a make. And I know there's something that the coaches have harped, but you can't. You have to get back. If you're not going to get back, don't get beat back and give up an N1. That's awful because you give up an N1. That's 3 points. Then you give them an opportunity, stop clock, shoot a free throw, then you put a foul on the Illinois defender. That is huge for me. And also, like I said earlier, I'm going to guard every single person on that team expecting that they can make shots because what has happened, and I'm not being the negative Illinois guy here, but every time they doink somebody, they magically has a game where they shouldn't. You know, a guy that's shooting 16% from the three-point line shoots 45%. Guard them, get back on defense, and then exploit the mismatches. I think,
Can Ken and I get in an argument again?
Oh,
go ahead.
So, that's always fun. Like, I agree with you today, but I think against a lot of teams, I mean, when you say every time, my thing is they're 10th in the country in defensive efficiency. So evidently what they're doing is working in some regard. So even if guys make shots, sometimes the percentages would tell you that they're not making them enough to not be good defensively. So I'm not against
I'm not
that.
saying Illinois defense. I'm not saying that. I wasn't. I'm glad you mentioned that. I just think giving up that many easy baskets. I know the old school way is always let your point guard stay back. I just know that I don't want to see them get burnt, not getting back and celebrating off of a shot. I don't know if this team's going to do that or not. No, I think Illinois is a good defensive team. And one of the things I was also going to say, the stats are they're similar. Defensively, you mentioned they're both rebounding teams, and Michigan State, there was times when they played, I think the other night, I don't know who it was, the ball hit the floor, Brad. I'm sure you guys have both seen that drill. Yeah. When you do a block out, the ball literally has hit the floor a couple times. So Illinois is going to have to be smart and go rebound. And I like to see. I do like the fact that their guards rebound. Draymond Gibbs traditionally doesn't do it, but the other guards do. And if he can get a couple out of him, because KJ obviously rebounds well. But my thing again, my most important thing is you got to get back on defense, and we cannot have KJ or Ivasic sitting on a bench in foul trouble. And Merez is also athletic enough to be out there to guard today.
Yeah, I'll tell you what. I'm going to say a couple things about the game because I think there's just a couple things I think it's different. One is I think this game is a bigger game for the Illini than it is for Michigan State. It's not about the rankings, though. I think if they go out there at Breslin and they deal with the physical defense, I think that puts a bug in these referees' ear that Illinois can handle that. And they may get the benefit of the doubt in other calls because we've talked about this. These guys are these refs are basketball fans. They know who's playing whom, and if Illinois handles that defense, then it gives Illinois some street cred with these guys, and I think that will be a big thing for the future. And I do think you also run into three guys that you don't want to have fouls. Yakachonis, obviously. Ivasic for sure, and the other one is Morez Johnson. You're going to need those two bigs, and obviously you're going to need Yakachonis from a standpoint of scoring. Those three guys have to avoid fouls, and I'm worried that Morez will have one or two of those phantom calls against him that will make a big difference later in the game when Brad talks about that one call that could, tip the balance. So I like I said, I know I'm not saying that the Illini will be in a bad place if they lose, but I think they've got a lot they can win by proving to the Big Ten as a whole that they can handle this type of physical game, especially on the road.
Yeah, I don't disagree with you, Mike. The one thing I would say is, Illinois, I think if you want to win the Big Ten, this is a game they probably need to win. If your goal is to make the NCAAs, and make a run, then I don't know that this game is as important. Now, I think the one thing for Michigan State, you can't afford to lose at home, but this would be a way for Illinois to basically steal back the USC loss. And
Yes.
you would be in the same spot that we expected him to be in, right? I mean, so if they win today, then they have basically – we forget about that USC loss and say, all right, now we're in a good spot. We're sitting here at, 6-2 in the Big Ten, 14-4 overall. And you're going to be favored, I'm guessing, in, analytically and maybe every game, but at Michigan, if you win today, maybe at Wisconsin and Duke. But I mean, in the conference, you've only got a couple of games where you aren't favored the rest of the way. So you're staring like a 16-4 conference slate in the face if you can win today. And I thought 14-6, 15-5 would be a great conference season for them this year. So, we'll see what happens.
I agree, Mike, and also, what Brad was saying, I think today's game, because if you go down, and that gives you 3 losses in the conference. The more I look at that USC loss, the more I think it stings, more so than Northwestern, other than the rivalry fact. I believe, I could be wrong, I think Illinois has the most road wins in the Big Ten, I think. So it's not that they're not comfortable playing on the road, but you have to if you can beat a team like this after losing to USC, you become the talk of the national stage again, and it gives the program more street cred. It gives the players more street cred. You got to beat a team like this. And then, I feel bad for Michigan because if Illinois doesn't, first thing people are going to say, they're going to look at their last 9 or 10 games and say, well, you really haven't played anybody. I would feel more comfortable today if this game was in Champaign, because I think Illinois is the better team. And same thing, when you're home, when you look at the spreads, being the home team against two good quality opponents, you're going to get 1 or 2 points on that spread just because you're playing at home.
Hey, you want to hear a wild stat? Illinois, in games played at noon or earlier in Brad Underwood's era, they're 10-19.
I heard that.
It's crazy. But you know what? It seems like they're better when they play on the road, because I think they have control of where the guys are the night before. I mean, that sounds crazy. But I mean, they at home, they're kind of on their own. So I think that may be part of it. Maybe being on the road, if you're going to play a morning game, maybe we want to be on the road.
Brad, either that or if you're playing a morning game, maybe that hotel needs to have the basketball team there the night before. So
we need to have a lock-in like we used to have back in the day, right?
Yeah. Except you'd never had to sleep.
If you've been to they could stay at the State Farm Center, just shoot all night. Just we'll lock in and play all night.
Yeah, be Bobby Knight. Just do wind sprints all evening long. You'll be tired. You'll fall asleep because you'll be tired. I know Brad is getting close for you, where you're going to cut out of here. Any last second thoughts on the game, Brad, that you want to put out there that people can then come after you for?
Yeah, no. I think this is a great game. This is a great college basketball game. It's going to be a lot of fun. National television on CBS. I think this is awesome. This is where the Illinois program's in a great place, and hopefully they come out and play well, because I think if they play well, they're going to win. But it's hard to say you're going to play your best on the road at Michigan State, and that's the hard part. And so somebody just said last 11 a.m. tip they won on the road was at MSU, the Trent Frazier shot game. So yeah, that was cool. That was a good one. So I remember that. I think so I think Illinois has a chance to win this game. I think it's going to come down to the wire. It's going to be who makes plays down the stretch. I just hope the guys in the court make the plays and not the guys in the stripes.
Good point. I'm going to give fans something to look forward to really quick. Kylan Boswell and Jeremy Fears Jr., they're really good friends. They grew up together. They've been friends since the 7th grade. Their parents still talk, and they've competed against each other. And I've heard one of the parents say, well, I think my kid's a better defensive player and my kid shoots the ball better. So that's a match that I'm really looking forward to, because I also did a podcast with both of those families when Illinois was recruiting the both of them. So just to keep in mind, that's going to be an interesting matchup to see how well they are. And I will tell you this, Illinois fans, because we saw it with Luke Goody the other day. And, I did have a chat with him. I put it on our message boards. But there's going to be a lot of trash talking, I think, between Colin Boswell and Jeremy Fears Jr. today. And that's okay as long as it's healthy, because they do know each other. And I think Fears may have a little chip in his shoulder, because I know one time he was going to commit to Illinois, then end up going to Michigan State. So he did tell me over a year ago he couldn't wait to play Illinois again. So I'm really curious to see how this is going to turn out today.
Yeah, this is going to be a premier matchup, two of the best teams in the Big Ten, and I really look at this as an opportunity for the Illini to prove to people that they aren't a team that's just built for postseason play, and they're a team that can handle the rugged Big Ten. And I do think that playing better this game will help them down the line in other physical matchups as they go in and try to deal with some of these guys. Looking for what's going on, maybe we're finding out. Maybe we'll see if Brad Underwood can be a morning person and help these guys find a way to get out there at 11 and in the morning and get this win. Brad, where are you landing on a tentative prediction?
I said it's going to be, I think it's going to be a one possession game. I think I said 78-76 or 78-75, right around that range of scoring. I think that these teams are going to struggle to get the offensive rebounds they usually get, which helps them score up in the 80s. And so against two other good rebounding teams. So it's going to be a little lower scoring than maybe some of the other ones, but now it'll probably be 102 to 101. So
I'm going to give the benefit of the doubt. I hate to say this, but I'm going to give it to Michigan State 85-82, just strictly because they're home. If it was on a neutral site or in Champaign, I would have a different prediction for you.
Yeah, I'll be honest with you. I'm looking for Illinois to be very close. I think this is one that I think Illinois can pull out at the very end. But I think the two stats that you really need to take a look at is 3-point percentage and rebounding. If Illinois can keep the rebounds pretty much equal and they shoot over 30% from the three, I think they win this game. If Illinois has a half or a full game where they're shooting in that 35 to 42 range from the three, they could make this thing look very, very, very interesting. So I do think that is something that as you watch the game, look for those two stats. And then there's one other, and I know some people will get a little bit frustrated with me, but the foul count and the free throw count, because there's two components here. The number of fouls is important, but you need to keep track of that until about 5 minutes left in the game, because then if you watch most basketball games, the team that is behind, a lot of times they will catch up in foul calls that last 5 minutes when it doesn't mean anything. So again, you look at fouls and free throws attempted, and you kind of snap the wire at 5 minutes left. But I think that is those are the three things that I'm looking for in terms of stats, et cetera.
Well, most stats do matter, Mike. I can't say that they don't, because they definitely do matter, and that's why they have them. They don't have them for people to look at just for coffee talk. You see a lot of coaches pick up the paper and they'll see who's in foul trouble for themselves, and when they're managing the game. And sometimes I've seen one coach, Maryland, wink, wink, who took the stat sheet and showed it to official, and the official didn't like that because he felt that he was getting cheated. So just, it does matter. I'm just really excited for this game. And, Brad's right there on the national stage, the CBS game. So everything's right there for you.
Yeah, I think Yeah, I think it's there, and again, this is going to be a great matchup, and I'm excited about it. You just like Brad said a couple times. Um, do we, you really want to be in a situation where the guys on the court make the decision? I don't want to see, for example, folks. I mean, look, I'm not a Michigan State fan, but I don't want to see Jeremy Fears get in. Um, Foul trouble, and then we don't get to see him play down the stretch, or we don't get him to play for 18 minutes or something like that. I want to see their best guys out on the floor and competing. So I'm excited, for this game, and I hope the teams can stay out of foul trouble and get this thing going. Now, one other thing, Ked, and I wanted to get your opinion on this. I mean, I think Illinois is a different. Let's say they're a higher octane team than some of the people that Michigan State have played recently. Is there any adjustment period where Michigan State's got to kind of come up to speed because they just haven't played somebody with the talent level that Illinois has in a long while?
Well, I don't want to make the Michigan State fans get mad at me because some of them obviously they have a comprehension problem or don't want to face facts. I'm really sorry. I mean, my Twitter, I don't typically get upset. My thing is exactly what you said. This is one of the most talented teams that Michigan State will have played all year. Now, Illinois could come out and lay an egg. We've seen it. It's college basketball. That's just what it is. But I think, you're going to see Michigan State. They're going to try to force their issue on you. He's done it forever. Teams that slow them down, Michigan State doesn't run away with the game. 19 points is an awful lot of points on transition basketball. You take 19 points away, and most teams are going to have fast breaks, but a lot of teams, Mike, they only have 4 or 5 points of fast break action. So sometimes it's 6. 19 is an awful lot. That's why I keep harping on it. So, but I think, and I know neither coach likes to play zone, and I think if you're going to beat Illinois, and I'm just sorry. I would do a 3-2 zone. You do a 3-2 zone against Illinois, you take Ivica out of the game. He's not as effective because he likes shooting the ball from the top of the key or the baseline. Well, the baseline is you already have a runner there, and that's typically your 2 guard with KJ, Hyman Collins, and Draymond Gilmore and Trey White. So it does matter, and I'm just really curious to see the X's and O's. Who outdoes who today?
Well, I tell you what, the interesting thing is I used to love playing a 3-2 zone. Brad Underwood actually has a really good he has a good video on how to coach a 3-2 zone, but from back when he was assistant coach. And Ked, thanks for coming on. I know you've got to run here, so appreciate that. Underwood's got a great version of a 3-2 zone that you can watch, and I know that I used to tell my players running a 3-2 zone was good because if the ball is high, if it's a free throw line above, you had 3 guys up top, and if it's down in the corners, you got 3 guys below, and that rotation allowed you to really stack where the ball was. The whole key to playing any type of zone, but in particular a 3-2, is your ball pressure has to be very intense. Because if you don't put intense ball pressure, they can skip pass, and once a team starts skip passing against the zone, you're in big trouble. So
yeah, you hear Underwood say spread it. Yeah, you hear Underwood say spread. If you watch his actions, Mike, sorry to cut you off. You see he'll make the hand movement. The shots are going to come below the free throw line. The reason that they have the 3-2 is to take away that wing and top of the key shot. Missouri did that to Illinois, and if you go back and look at it, Ivica's kind of struggled with it. So, hey, my doctor's coming in, and I'll be ready at halftime.
All right, to look at that, folks, you got Kedrick Prince there, who is definitely handling this, being in a hospital to provide some coverage. So I'm going to give my hat off to him. One of the things, folks, the starting lineups have just been announced. So it's Kylan Boswell, Trey White, and obviously we will have Yakuchionis will be starting, Humrick House, and Ivicic. So Illinois will be starting those 5. And then looking across the way at what Michigan's starting, obviously Jeremy Fears Jr., you have Jaden Akins, Trey Holloman, Jackson Kohler, and Zapala starting in the paint. So we're looking at a game that really will feature 2 teams that are extremely talented. There is a lot of opportunities here for these teams to make a name for themselves. Michigan State has not beat a team at the level of Illinois. And certainly Illinois is looking to slay a dragon, which is to be able to go into Breslin and say that you beat Tom Izzo. That is not a regular event for any team in the country. And that is something that Illinois is looking to do in order to help them with both the Big Ten, putting their flag in the ground. I think it also matters when the refs know that you go into an enemy place and play well. They're fans. They've got their cell phones on as they're flying across the country at different games. They know who's winning. They know who's hot. They know who's not. And they also know what your team is allegedly good or not good at. To play well against a physical Michigan State team is critical for the Illini, even for setting the table for future games. And I think this game really has an opportunity for the Illini to stake some territory. And I think one of the things as well that is going on is, one, you're looking at Illinois averages 87.3 points a game. Michigan State's at 81.8. And I don't think a lot of people saw that, but they have amped up the fast break to make up for the fact that they don't have the 3-point shooting of other teams. Michigan State averages 40.8 rebounds a game. Illinois is at 45.5. And that, folks, again, as we talk about it, watch for the rebounding stats, watch for the 3-point percentage, and watch for the fouls/free throws. Those are probably the three factors that will make the biggest difference in the game. And we will see, just how this game matches up. Folks, if you can hit the like button, if you can obviously subscribe to the IlliniGuys.com channel, that would really help us out. And if you can tell your friends, that's the bottom line. We're going to be doing a halftime show. It'll be Ked and I. I'm not certain if Ked will be in a hospital room or if he'll be at home. We will see. But we will have the halftime show, and then the post-game show. Sturdy will be back with myself, possibly Ked. We will try to get on Matt after he covers the press conference. That can get a little dicey on the timing because we end up making a live show that just gets so long that people think we're covering the Super Bowl. So we got to try to balance that for you. But we will be live twice today. The most important thing is if you can share our stuff on social media, that really helps us. It allows us to go ahead and, grow organically across the board. We spend an awful lot of time trying to cover Illini sports, and it's very rewarding. Thank you so much for coming on today. We love to see how many folks are enjoying this, and we love your comments, etc. What's going on with Booth? I think Booth is working on his skill set. I think physically, this Illinois team is a bunch of men, and he has some opportunities for growth there. I saw, as many did, that he was working post-game with Deon Thomas. There's not a nicer human being than Deon, but he's also incredibly knowledgeable about the game of basketball. And if you ever want to listen to an interview, we actually did an Eye on the Illini with Deon. You can go ahead and search. He is a fantastic individual, and if Booth is working with Deon, he will get better because he will get what is needed in terms of how to get out on a basketball court and use your position and find ways to score. Of course, Deon, if you listen to the podcast, you'll find out that he had many opportunities to play in the NBA, but enjoyed what he was doing in Europe and was making quite a bit of money over there. Now, you don't hear that story so much in today's super high salary cap world, but in that day, I think he enjoyed what he was doing, and I got to give a guy credit for sticking with what was causing him to have a positive life. Also, folks, one last thing. When you take a look at IlliniGuys.com, you can go there and subscribe. That's the mothership. That's what keeps everything going, and that's where you get the stuff that we can't really talk about on the air. the rumors, the innuendos. You know, for us to publish it or go out with it, we have pretty high standards. Larry Smith is a former CNN anchor. He's obviously been an anchor of major market television stations for 20 plus years as well. So we are in a situation where we will only go with things that we can actually verify and from a couple sources. So when we hear rumors and it's only one source and they won't go on the record, well, we can't really report that as a story, but we can put it on the message board to give you some context as to what is going on behind the scenes, particularly when maybe a player is struggling or maybe there's things going on during the season. We can give you some ideas of like maybe what's really going on. And when it comes to recruiting, particularly in the off season, we can put things there as well. It's very hard, again, when you don't have sources to name, it's hard to put that story out on the front page, but we have message boards. And that's what makes IlliniGuys.com such a good value. For $99 a year, you get the message boards. We talk about football. We talk about basketball. There's all sorts of stuff. There's thousands of Illini fans from around the world. You can build relationships with people as they discuss everything except one thing. We do not do politics. If people want politics, go throw up all over your Facebook page. We don't care. We don't want to hear it. We like to talk Illini sports, Big Ten sports, NFL, NBA, you name it. As long as it's sports, we enjoy it. But what makes it different, and this is really important, is that you can go ahead and ask Brad a question. He's right there. He is on the boards all the time. If you read something in an article and you're like, what do you mean by the high hedge? Well, you know, or a hard hedge. He can sit there and tell you this is what it means because you can put it right in a thread. People will go back and forth and you get a lot of great opinions, build fantastic relationships. And to be honest, that's how Larry, Brad, and myself all met on another message board where we became friends and we started meeting in real life. And then that led to the Illini Guys. So bottom line is that message board is gold. If you want to join IlliniGuys.com, you'll get all of our stories. You won't have to worry about that annoying paywall. You'll get all the message board stuff. You'll still get all of the audio, visual, etc. Please take a look at it. We would love to have even more people as members. And we don't give stuff away. We have to be able to send Matt up to Michigan State or send Brad to New York to cover the Duke game. Those things do cost money. But I can tell you that you know how much prices have went up since the pandemic. Well, we started in January of 2021. We've not raised our price. We've done everything we can to avoid raising our price. So the more subscribers we have, the easier it is for us to cover Illini sports to the best of our ability. With that, folks, we are going to wrap this up. Thank you so much for coming on to the first ever Illini Guys pregame live. We won't do these in front of every game because all of us have jobs, but we will try to pick key games or games where we can get into the schedule and give you good coverage. And we will do that as often as we can. At the half, though, Halftime Live will be out there. And at the end of the game, I on the Illini will be live out there. Subscribe to all of our podcasts. Subscribe to the IlliniGuys.com channel on YouTube. And please think about subscribing to the mothership, the IlliniGuys.com website. Until the half, folks, go Illini.